read this bigger?
Yeah, I'm blind as fuck. If you have found yourself on the Pot Smoking Moms podcast, then you are exactly where you're supposed to be. Thank you so much for joining us. We know there's so many other podcasts that you could spend your time on, but we appreciate you spending your time with us. I'm Sunny D, along with my homegirl, Captain J.
Hello, hello.
Hey, if you listen to our podcast regularly, or if you're new here and you like what you hear, or if you go to our Instagram, please follow us, rate, subscribe, share us with friends, and, go to our website, potsmokingmoms.com. Everything is there. Everything. Patreon, it's Instagram, TikTok, it all there. What's up? What do we got on deck for smokage today, Captain J? Oh, I have something on deck this time.
I forgot. I left it over there. That's why.
It's okay if you want to go run and get it.
It was some Mandarin Dream that I ground up.
Well, I got some Grape Goddess. That sounds fancy as fuck. So if you got them at home, go ahead. Light it up. It's time. Or grind it up. Grind it up. All right, guys. Here we go. Cheers.
Whoa. You all right there? Get you some water.
I'm not used to this tiny little bong.
Why didn't you use one of my bigger ones?
Mira, I don't just walk into people's houses and grab their bong and smoke out of it.
You know that my bongs are your bongs.
Oh, that's so sweet. I would still,
Just as long as you're not using the one I'm using right now and you just take one of the
that
ones
would be
down
so
there.
weird. If I pick up your bong that you're currently using, go, yeah, I think this is the one I want to use right now this second. That'd be fucking creepy.
I mean, back then, we used to share bongs.
Not like that, though.
We used to pass bongs back and forth.
Did we? No,
Yes. People passed bongs.
I don't know. I'm so far removed from those days of just give me the light and pass it, yo. That's my Sean Paul impression. It's terrible. It's still fun, though.
It's pretty good. Way better than I could do.
Not yet. All right, there you go. That was a smoke sesh brought to you by
Pot Smoking Moms.
Brought to you by Weed. So great. So we got some big news for everybody. We paused and looked at each other because Jay's like, I don't know where she's going with this. So that's all. Everybody, hold on to your titties.
Event. We're going to be in public.
We are going to be in public. Dab Day, 710 Dab Day. If you don't know what 710 stands for.
We didn't know either we started this podcast.
Yeah, we're
like, there's a whole new number. There's an addition to 420. So yeah. It stands for oil.
Like right, if you put it backwards, right?
Yeah, like upside down.
Oil, upside down. Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, I think so. Like if you put it in a
calculator. You text it.
Uh-huh. It spells boobies.
You beeper code it.
Anyways, Dab Day, 710 Dab Day. We're not going to be there we're not hosting. I want to eventually, but we're not going to be hosting. We're going to be
We're not
there.
going to be a vendor. We're going to be there as guests.
Exactly. Come hang out with us. July 10th. It's at a place called Fun Dimension, but you got to go to the Dab Day website for the tickets.
Yeah. We got ours already.
We did. We got ours already. I can't wait because I just want to do something. And seeing that it's on July 10th, which was the day that I was going to fly out to California.
Yeah, which is why we weren't planning it.
Right, we weren't planning on being there. So right before if you weren't there for our Instagram live, right before Wednesday, in the middle of the night, I got the email that was like, hey, thanks. You know, we had a lot of, you know, we didn't pick you, but we had a lot of people participate and, you know, even getting an audition, blah, blah, blah. We'll keep you on, you know, like when you don't get the job.
Yeah.
We'll keep your resume on file.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep being great.
Keep going for it.
Yeah, keep shooting for the stars and sticking your hand up puppets' asses. Just whatever. It's like, you know, I figured it was really a great experience. We talked about it on Instagram Live. I'm not, you know, upset about it. I was worried actually about being away from my family for 3 weeks and like being in a place completely alone by myself. Like, but you know, I was willing to figure that out. But you know, it was a try. I hadn't auditioned for anything in forever, so it was like I don't know. I was like not really ready for it, but I tried, and that's great. We'll you know, keep doing shit, keep making content.
Yes,
keep making delicious content. So speaking of which, Instagram Live, we are gonna go live on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. So if you follow us on Instagram, join us. We'll be talking about, you know, the podcast episode we released that day, and then
seshing,
chilling,
talking to you guys,
talking about pizza probably because that's what ends up happening.
A good part of our live conversation was about pizza.
Turned into a conversation about pizza.
It was great.
Very
I think that was
stoner.
because of Shelby, right?
Yeah, and Charles Entertainment Cheese. But anywho. If join us on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern on Instagram Live. We would love to see your font in the chat. We also really have a wonderful interview for today's episode. We're so excited. I think you guys are going to absolutely love her. Her name is Dr. Dina. She's a real Nancy Botwin. Yeah, I mean, she's so interesting, and she's awesome, led an amazing life. She is a predominant figure in cannabis, and it was such a blast talking to her. So stay tuned for that.
Yes.
Fantastic. But, you know, before we get to that awesomeness, we got this awesomeness. Not just news, it's stoner news.
Connecticut marijuana legalization bill heads to the governor's desk. To the yay. Congrats, Connecticut. So Connecticut is on the verge of legalizing marijuana after lawmakers send a cannabis reform bill to the desk of the Senate-supported governor
on Thursday.
Governor. On Thursday. If Lamont signs the bill, which he will, into law as expected, possession of marijuana by adults 21 and older will become legal on July 1st. Commercial cannabis sales could begin as soon as next May, but the bill does not specify an exact start date. It would make the state the 19th to have enacted the policy change and the 4th this year alone.
Here are some key details of the current legalization proposal. It would allow adults 21 and older to possess up to 1.5 ounces of cannabis starting on July 1st and establish a retail market. Legislative leaders anticipate sales would launch in May 2022.
Regulators with the Department of Consumer Protection, DCP, would be responsible for issuing licenses for growers,
DCP,
retailers, manufacturers, and delivery services. Social equity applicants would be entitled to half of those licenses.
Equity applicants could also qualify for technical assistance, workforce training, and funding to cover startup costs.
A significant amount of tax revenue from cannabis sales would go towards broader community reinvestment, targeting areas most affected by the criminal drug war.
Home cultivation would be permitted, first for medical marijuana patients and later for adult use consumers.
Awesome.
I'm just overusing the yay button today.
Most criminal convictions for possession of less than 4 ounces of cannabis would be automatically expunged beginning in 2023. Yay!
Beginning July 1st, 2022, individuals could petition to have other cannabis convictions erased, such as for possession of marijuana paraphernalia or the sale of small amounts of cannabis.
The smell of cannabis alone would no longer be a legal basis for law enforcement to stop and search individuals, nor would suspected possession of up to 5 ounces of marijuana.
Absent federal restrictions, employers would not be able to take adverse actions against workers merely for testing positive of cannabis metabolites.
Yay! Rental tenants, students of institutions of higher learning, and professionals in licensed occupations would be protected from certain types of discrimination around legal cannabis use. People who test positive for cannabis which suggests past use could not be denied organ transplants or other medical care, educational opportunities, or have action taken against them from the Department of Children and Families, without any other evidence-based reason for the action.
I would say yay, but that's
I know. I thought you were going to say yay.
I wouldn't say yay, but come on. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Cannabis-related advertising could not target people under 21, and businesses that allow minors on their premises would be penalized. Products designed to appeal to children would be forbidden.
Duh.
Yeah.
Licensees who sell to minors would be guilty of a Class A misdemeanor, punishable by up to a year in prison and a $2,000 fine. People in charge of households or private properties who allow minors to possess cannabis there could also face a Class A misdemeanor.
Adults 18 to 20 years old who are caught with small amounts of cannabis would be subject to a $50 civil fine, although subsequent violations could carry a $150 fine and or mandatory community service. All possession offenses would require individuals to sign a statement acknowledging the health risks of cannabis to young people.
Okay. Minors under 18 could not be arrested for simple cannabis possession. A first offense would carry a written warning and a possible referral to youth services, while a third or subsequent offense or possession of more than 5 ounces, damn, that's a lot for a kid to have on them, would send the individual to juvenile court.
Damn, they'd be slanging. Local governments, seems like 5-year-old hanging out there with 5 ounces of fucking marijuana. Local governments could prohibit cannabis businesses or ban cannabis delivery within their jurisdictions. Municipalities could also set reasonable limits on the number of licensed businesses or locations, operating hours, and signage.
Municipalities with more than 50,000 residents would need to provide a designated area for public cannabis consumption. Interesting.
Until June 30, 2024, the number of licensed cannabis retailers could not exceed 1 per 25,000 residents. After that, state regulators will set a new maximum.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. All right.
Cannabis products would be capped at 30% THC. Wait, all products or just flower? By weight of cannabis flower and all other products except pre-filled vape cartridges at 60% THC, though those limits could be further adjusted by regulators. Medical marijuana products would be exempt from the potency caps. Retailers would also need to provide access to low THC and high CBD products. So they're going to cap it at 60% for like cartridges and stuff like that. That's kind of low, no? Those can be high sometimes.
Yeah, but yeah, I guess.
And they're capping the flower at 30. That's not bad.
Yeah, we get below 20 all the time. The state's general sales tax of 6.35% would apply to cannabis, and an additional excise tax based on THC content would be imposed. The bill also authorizes a 3% municipal tax, which must be used for community reinvestment.
Existing medical marijuana dispensaries could become hybrid retailers to also serve adult use consumers. Regulators would begin accepting applications for the hybrid permits in September of 2021, and applicants would need to submit a conversion plan and pay $1 million fee. That fee could be cut in half if they create a so-called equity joint venture, which would need to be majority owned by a social equity applicant. Medical marijuana growers could also begin cultivating adult use cannabis in the second half of the year, though they would need to pay a fee of up to $3 million. Damn,
God, you gotta be rich to get rich.
Mm-hmm.
Licensing fees for social equity applicants would be 50% of open licensing fees. Applicants would need to pay a small fee to enter a lottery, then a larger fee if they're granted a license. Social equity licenses would also receive a 50% discount on license fees for the first 3 years of renewals. Pretty specific.
The state would be allowed to enter into cannabis-related agreements with tribal governments, such as the Mashantucket Pico tribe. I hope I said that right.
Mashantucket Pico tribe
and the Mohegan tribe of Indians.
I like Mohegan. It's a fun word. Meanwhile, in neighboring Rhode Island, the Legislative Committee on Monday approved the marijuana legislation bill backed by Senate leadership in the state.
Rhode Island's nipping at the heels.
I mean, it just feels like every month or every month and a half.
What did they say? It's like already, this is the fourth one this year.
Is it?
Yeah.
Here
it sure
it comes. Here comes marijuana legalization.
The fourth this year alone.
Which is great. But at this point, Mr. Biden, we need to figure some shit out. But in the meantime, here's another segment we all love so dearly. Oh, Miami.
Florida Supreme Court issues another defeat to marijuana legalization. 3 cases, 3 months, 3 defeats for advocates of expanding cannabis use. Bwah, 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 bwah.
Hold on. Oh, no, wrong one. Ay, ay, ay.
So, for the third time in 3 months, the Florida Supreme Court dashed the hopes of Floridians who want to see expanded access to cannabis. In a 5-2 ruling on Thursday, the state's highest court found a ballot initiative to legalize marijuana to be misleading. The initiative, titled Regulate Marijuana in a Manner Similar to Alcohol to Establish Licensing and Other Restrictions, also would have allowed Floridians to grow cannabis at home. Had it reached the ballot, the initiative would have been needed to get 60% of the voters to become a part of the state constitution. The Attorney General, Ashley Moody, asked the court to weigh in on the ballot measure in September of 2019, and it took the court the better of 2 years to issue its ruling.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's when we first started this podcast.
Oh, that's true.
We were talking about this initiative.
It's been going, yeah.
That's crazy.
I know.
And now is when
But also, I didn't even realize that 2 years went up like that so fast. But yeah, there you go. Justices Charles Canady, Ricky Polston, Carlos Muniz, John Coriel, and Jamie Grosshands concurred Thursday that Sensible Florida's ballot initiative misled voters because of the 75-word summary of the proposed amendment was unclear on the word use. The ballot summary said the amendment would regulate marijuana for limited use and growing by persons 21 years of age or older. Justices found that this could mean the initiative's backers were claiming to set guardrails on the amount of cannabis an individual could personally consume. But the justices wrote that the language of the constitutional amendment set no such limits. The sponsor's inability to point to anything in the text of the measure that could credibly support the limited use language in the summary leaves no doubt that the summary is affirmatively misleading. Justices wrote.
These guys look like, it seems like they're poking at bullshit.
Tampa attorney Michael Minardi, who backed the initiative, said in an interview he was disappointed in the court's decision. However, he plans to press on. His group will redraft the proposal in the hopes of getting a version of the amendment before voters in 2022. We have already rewritten some alternate versions, Minardi said. It's really a welcome thing just to have the option. Finally have the option.
Finally have the opinion.
My bad.
They've been waiting for 2 years for them to
come
rule
back with something,
on
right.
the language of this initiative. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
And now it's starting the whole
it's
process
like when
over again.
It's like when you have to get your driver's license and you go and they're like, oh, you need this and this. And you're like, oh my God. Why didn't I figure that out before I came here?
So Minardi has also entered the race to represent Florida House District 59, which covers part of the Hillsborough County. The attorney would face Democrat Andrew Learned in a potential general election. He said if elected, he would educate the Republican Party about the economic benefits of expanded cannabis access in Florida. Nicholas Warren, an attorney for the ACLU of Florida, said that the long wait between Moody's request and the court's ruling was highly unusual and harmful to the initiative's prospects. Yep. The Florida Supreme Court is killing initiatives by parking them in legal limbo, he said. records show that even without the court's decision, the marijuana legalization effort had a ways to go before hitting the 2022 ballot. Sensible Florida, the group chaired by Minardi, had collected just 29,172 of the necessary 891,589 valid signatures to be placed on the ballot. The group had raised about $271,000. Doesn't seem like much.
So many numbers. Like my brain just went.
They didn't get that far.
Successful ballot initiatives often cost millions of dollars. Sensible Florida may have trouble raising the money it needs. A law passed by the legislature earlier this year limits individual campaign contributions to groups backing or opposing ballot initiatives to $3,000 until the proposal is cleared for the ballot. The court's ruling Thursday is the latest in a string of defeats for advocates of expanded cannabis access. In April, the court defeated a different industry-backed marijuana legalization initiative, ruling that it too was misleading. In a 5-2 ruling on Thursday, the court determined that Make It Legal Florida reform initiative is unconstitutional, arguing that the ballot summary is affirmatively misleading, which we had talked about this too. Mm-hmm. Because it says adult use cannabis would be made lawful in the state without explicitly acknowledging that it would remain illegal under federal law. Oh, Jesus.
They're being that was in April when they shot down Make It Legal.
Yeah. It's like when you're trying to, when you have an insurance claim in the house.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of same.
Find anything.
They're like, oh yeah, this is not the color, boop, that you said it was on the application. So it's not covered. Sorry. Ridiculous. In May, justices found Florida's medical marijuana regulations to be constitutional, a blow to smaller businesses hoping to enter the heavily regulated market,
which we discussed last week.
Charlie Crist, the Democratic congressman who hopes to challenge DeSantis in 2022 governor's race, blasted the court's decision on Twitter. The Supreme Court that Governor DeSantis packed with partisan judges just denied another ballot initiative to let Floridians vote on legalized marijuana. This is wrong. Legalization should be up to the people of Florida, Christ tweeted. When he was governor, Crist appointed Kennedy and Polston, who sided with a majority to the Supreme Court. Crist also appointed George Labaraga, who dissented in this case. So
one of the three of the judges he appointed is in favor.
So maybe if we start a petition now,
No, these two petitions are just gonna have to redo
it,
do their language and try again, and it's just stalling them.
Right, and then we'll hear from them back in 2 years again. Be like,
it's been 2 years.
You wrote this in blue ink. Should have been black. Motherfuckers.
Oh, Florida.
Yeah, Florida. Sometimes you just don't get it right. So, thanks so much for listening to us. We got a great interview coming up for you. This is Dr. Dina. She's a real Nancy Baldwin. You know that series Weeds? Well, that was all based on her. Well, not all. We discussed.
They did it to her likeness. You'll hear all about it in the interview.
Yes. She is hailed as the Princess of Pot by Rolling Stone magazine, right?
Yeah, I think they called her the Queen of.
I don't remember
Cannabis. Which one is what?
Princess of Pot, Queen of Cannabis. She's besties with Snoop. So, man, we were doing research on you, and we are so amazed. Your first story, the story of you first trying weed is like insane.
I literally checked off like my bucket list that I didn't know I had. Everyone's like, that's on our bucket list. I'm like, I didn't even know that was something to put on your bucket list.
Yes, everyone dreams for that.
Forcing you. You can't really say no when he tells you to hit a blunt.
Yeah, for real. How, did you know him hardcore? Like, was he, he was already getting notoriety. Like, were you nervous when you were around him? I'm sure he was a little intimidating.
Well, it was weird because my best friend, his stepfather, was a partner and basically like Suge Knight's partner in Death Row Records.
Holy shit.
And he was, yeah, exactly. And he was a and a criminal attorney. And I didn't really understand. Like, I knew he always represented like mob figures, and they had a lot of security at their house. And then sometime when I was about 14, 15 is when he started working with Suge Knight. And all of a sudden, like, the house changed overnight. It went from like, because he always worked out of they turned their old garage into an office. And so there was always like some, riffraff coming through. But then that riffraff turned into like them running a label out of their house. And Snoop was there all the time. We called him Snoopy. And he was actually living at that house for like a good year. I think when he was like 17 or 18, he was living there. So he was there all the time. I wasn't starstruck because he was just barely getting famous. Like, I knew who he was, but my parents didn't, kind of thing. So I was excited, but it wasn't like it's Snoop Dogg now. Like, people would freak out if it's today.
Yeah.
This was before his murder rap. Like, he didn't have the notoriety back then.
Right. So you kind of grew up with him then, huh?
Absolutely. I mean, to me, it was normal to like go see Dr. Dre at someone's house, then Suge Knight and Snoop Dogg and Tupac. And it was like, if you want to go there, go see them, go to the house and hang out, and they're all going to be there. So that was a little weird. I do remember, I think Snoop was like, everyone was made this commotion, like, we're going to go smoke. And I was following them because I wanted to be part of the group. And we went behind the tennis courts because that was kind of like the place that was furthest from the front of the street. And, my friend's parents could care less if we were smoking weed. I didn't know that at the time. I assumed that all parents had a problem with you smoking cannabis, so I was totally like, oh my God, hiding it. And I was freaked out, and Snoop was just like, here, you're going to hit this and hit this now, just to kind of like, he didn't want me to freak out. And yeah, that was it. To this day, I'm still best friends with the same person whose crazy house that was at. And we still reminisce about these stories all the time.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then that's kind of kickstarted everything off for you in the realm of cannabis industry.
Yes and no. I mean, I didn't enter the cannabis industry at that age.
No, you were just a teenager.
Right. That was
were you not an option? Like, we didn't have medical cannabis back then.
Right.
It wasn't even legal. Back in the old days, we didn't have medical cannabis.
With a sneaker
and that passed in 1996.
Wow.
So good old 1996 was a good year for us all. However, no one knew what it meant. Like, what did that mean? Did it mean you could open a store? Did it mean no one knew what that meant, that it passed for legal? So nothing happened for years and years and years, for about 5 years after. And that's when I found my way in the cannabis industry. I had a close friend of mine. It was actually, let's go back. I was engaged to a guy who I'm still friends with, but I should never have been engaged to him. And luckily I did not marry him. It would have been very bad. But he's the error of Life Alert. The help, I've fallen and I can't get up.
Right.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of money. And I realized that my life was going to turn into like just being a housewife. And that was a harsh reality for me, because sure, I like hit the jackpot. I'd be the Kardashians' neighbors. But like, is that what I want for my life? Like, I want to do something. I want to be, make a name for myself. And I was contemplating what to do. I was in the fashion industry. I was very confused. And I decided that we were going to break up. And it was kind of like this weird breakup for like a month where we were living together and we knew that we weren't going to really get married. And it was like, what are we doing? We should break up. And I got a phone call at his house one day, and it was his childhood best friend who I had met a couple times. And his friend had told me, and my ex wasn't home at the time, so I spoke to him. And he told me there's good news and bad news. Good news is I met this amazing woman, and she's Swedish, and she had to go back to Sweden, and I didn't want her to, so I married her. And I am married. I can't wait to, you guys to meet her. She's wonderful. And I go, well, what about the bad news? And he goes, well, the bad news is I went to get life insurance because I want to take care of her forever. And if something were to happen to me, I want to make sure she's going to have a good life. And she dropped everything to move from Sweden here, and I want to take care of her. And when he went to the doctor to get a physical, which you have to do oftentimes if you get life insurance over $100,000, they found some weird number in his blood results, and he went back in, and after a couple tests, they sat him down and said, you have stage 4 testicular cancer that's located in your stomach. And basically start taking care of, you know, your paperwork and your life, get everything in order. We're going to put you on chemo, but there's no guarantees. And that was a shocking thing to hear. And he said, no, I'm going to fight this. And he, at the same time, he had lost his job right around the time he met her. And he was so like head over heels in love with her that he forgot to file for COBRA insurance. He just slipped his mind. Okay. And so he literally had no health insurance when he found out he had cancer, and he could not get health insurance at that point. So he was paying out of pocket for his chemo, and every pill was about $300, and he was throwing them up one after the other. He would take 3 pills. He would throw 3 pills up 20 minutes later. And he started getting really depressed, and he realized that he was going to die and leave her with no money because he was literally flushing his money down the toilet. And he was reaching out to me that day to ask me a favor. And that favor was, can he borrow one of the guns that my ex-fiance collected? Because he decided he was just going to kill himself, put himself out of this misery. And he has about 50 grand in his bank account, and he can leave it to his wife and move on. Like, she can move on with her life, and he's not going to survive. He keeps getting sick. And I heard a depressed, sad, scared person on the other line. And I immediately dropped everything. I called a friend of mine who I knew sold weed, was a drug dealer for all intents and purposes. And I said, hey, I need you to roll me a joint. I got to pick up a joint. So I bought a joint from him, and I drove it to this guy's house. And his wife freaked out. She did not want me to smoke in the house. She didn't want him to smoke in the house. She was convinced that we were like Sweden, and she was going to get to, you know, either get deported or go to jail for life. So I started yelling at her, like, get the fuck out of the house. You know, like, the guy's dying here. Are you going to try to help him or not? And she left. She got in the car. She drove down the street. It was a very like tumultuous scene. She was in tears. Like, I'm going to try, like, I'm killing her husband. And I lit this joint. I stuck it in his mouth. And at this point, I hadn't seen him in probably 2 or 3 years. He had lost over 160 pounds. He was skin and bones. Okay. I mean, I was shocked. When I walked in that door and I saw him, it was like a skeleton was staring at me. I was like, oh my God. And I thought maybe he was right. Maybe he knows that the gun might actually be the best, result here. And I started, puffing with him. And after about maybe 30 seconds, like, he started getting color to his face. Maybe it was the coughing that did that. But all of a sudden he stopped dry heaving. And about half an hour later, maybe 20 minutes, his stomach started to growl. And he looked at me, and I'll never forget this look, because he looked at me like it was partial, like, you're a mad scientist / witch. And I thought maybe, like, I did something bad to him, because the way he looked at me was like this crazy look. And I go, what? And he goes, I'm hungry. I haven't felt this feeling in 6 weeks. And I go, oh my God, that's amazing. And so we called his wife. She came back. She made him some toast and some eggs. He held his food down that night. He kept puffing the joint. And the next day he called me and said, I need more of this. If I can smoke this every day and I get that same result, I could beat this cancer. I can keep my chemo down. He's like, Dina, I think you might have actually given you like a whole another level of hope here. Like, this is kind of crazy. I'm like, this is amazing. And he goes, can you bring over more? Now, at that point, I was uncomfortable, because I'm like, I'm not a drug dealer. And like, what if I get caught driving this weed to you? And like, I don't want to go to jail. And if I go to jail, how are you going to get the weed? And you're going to die. I mean, this is like a bad situation, dude.
Right.
And so I remember that there was medical cannabis in California, but no one, of course, knew what the hell that meant. And so I started, there wasn't even Google back then. That's how long ago it was. We had Ask Jeeves. And so I asked Jeeves, where to find medical marijuana. And the only doctor's office that actually was openly talking about it were located in San Francisco.
Wow.
So I drove my friend to San Francisco from Los Angeles, and which is a nice, in traffic, 6 hours with him throwing up in my car the whole time because I wouldn't let him smoke. And we finally got there. It's a whole long story, but within, we took 3 hours to see the doctor. The line was so long. It was the most pop-in place I had been in a long time. It was like a nightclub line.
Right.
Wow.
And
the
it was
only
crazy.
place.
It was the only place.
Right.
And so I said, when I went inside, I said to the doctor, I go, listen, I live in LA, and there would be so many people lined up in LA. Like, how do you go about opening a doctor's office? And he goes, well, I'd love to come down to LA a couple days a week. If do you know anyone that wants to do it? And I go, I'll do it. And that was how it started. I literally a week later started a doctor's recommendation clinic. I had no money. I had no office. I lied to the doctor. I gave him an address. The address was of a Ramada Hotel in West Hollywood. I literally held a clinic in the lobby of a hotel. I didn't even ask permission. I would stand in the front and people would walk in. I would go, welcome to the Ramada. The front desk is to the left. Doctor's office is to the right.
Amazing.
And so that went on for like about 6 weeks until the manager of the hotel came up to me and goes, I know what you're doing. You're running a business inside of my lobby and you can't do that. However, the days that you're here, we make so much more money in valet and at the bar that we're just going to give you the conference room. And I'm like, great.
Wow.
So then I did so that we, did for a few more months. And at the same time, everyone would ask me the same question when they would leave my office. Where do we get our cannabis? Where's our medical marijuana available? And I didn't know where to send them. And there was one place that was open that reminded me of like a crack den. I was legitimately scared when I went to check it out. I will never forget the sound of like what my shoes on the floor. It was like this hollow wood floor. It was just like a scary feeling. And I'm like, get me out of here.
Sketchy.
And yeah, it was beyond sketchy. I think I saw the security guard like beat up some kid in the parking lot. It was like, get me out of here.
Oh my.
And so I went to the city of West Hollywood and I said, hey, I have this really great clinic and I'm helping all these people, but they have nowhere to go to get their cannabis. And they said, well, then just open somewhere. And I'm like, I need a license. And they go, here you go. And it was that easy. And so I opened up my first dispensary. And years later is when all the licensing started happening and the regulations. But in the beginning, it was like, Dina got a license, do whatever you want. Like the only rules are Dina's rules. So I kind of made my own rules up as far as what I thought was right and what I thought was wrong. And it's kind of funny because now I look at California as a whole and they kind of do everything similar to how I was doing it in the beginning, just a little more intensely. But it was a wild ride to see that, see it grow from a doctor's office to a dispensary. And of course, as soon as I opened my doctor's office, I had to have Snoop come in and get his rec. And so from that day forward, he nicknamed me Dr. Dina, which is better than Chubby, which is what he called me when I was a kid, because I was really skinny. So he called me Chubby.
Yeah.
And so Chubby became Dr. Dina. And I am not a doctor. I am not board certified by a medical board, but I am board certified by Snoop Dogg, and that is 100% way cooler.
And that's the most important when you're talking about cannabis.
Yeah, especially in the cannabis industry. Oh my God! You found the need and you filled that need every time. She got that shit
done. Like she's like, I'm gonna make this happen.
She's like, oh, we don't have that. Hold on a second.
I got this.
It was never about the money, and that's what makes me really sad about today because it's all about the money. Like the state only cares about cannabis because of the money that it's making. Mm-hmm. It's not about the healing anymore.
It's kind of like the hotel lobby guy.
Exactly.
He was like, oh, I make money. Okay, then we will put this in the conference room.
Exactly. So we are all in the conference room of life in California.
Yeah.
So that was back like in 2003, right? When you opened your first medical dispensary?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
2002.
That's
pretty crazy.
2002. So how much has things changed in cannabis in California since the very beginning to now, do you feel?
Nothing is the same that it was. Everything has changed. And it changed really just 3 years ago where regulation came in and it is a different beast. I mean, I used to be able to I had to buy packaging because I would buy loose pounds and I would package everything at my store. And I mean, I used to have people like Snoop Dogg and 2 Chainz think it was fun to come over and package our weed up because it reminded them of the trap back in the day. They're like, oh yeah, it's like being in the trap. And so now we don't do that. It's like everything comes packaged already. It's like now I feel like them. I'm like, oh, I miss seeing the turkey bags.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, I don't know. It's like,
it's highly regulated now. Like when she started, yeah, it was legal, but they hadn't really developed their
right. They were still figuring it out.
That's crazy.
In fact, I was the only business in Southern California. There was probably maybe like 4 of us that actually had business licenses from the city. Everyone else just opened. And because I had a business license in the city, if I had a friend who was a vendor or a grower and they got popped, I could go to court for them. And I could say, hey, that's my cannabis from my dispensary for my medical patients. And they would get off. And that's the saddest thing to me today. I can't do that anymore. Yeah. And I have a lot of friends who I helped not go to jail because I have a dispensary and they sold their product through my store and that made it legal. They were operating under my umbrella of legality, and now that's gone. I mean, unless you work for a manufacturer, cultivator, a dispensary, these licensed facilities, you can't touch things at certain, it's pretty wild. It makes me sad.
Yeah, like it's not as easy to get into the cannabis industry nowadays as compared to when it all first came
it's like elitist now. Like
now,
you have to have tons of money, especially here in Florida.
Yeah, we have vertical integration.
Do you know anything about?
It's a nightmare in Florida. That
so bad.
Thank you, Christy, for what you gave all of your friends licenses or their kids or whatever. You have a massive conglomerate being built that you're fully vertical and you're allowed 30 licenses or something crazy. If you get 1 license, then you can open up 30 locations. That's not what I wanted to see. And to me, it's all about the mom and pop shops. Definitely. And it's about the mom and pop growers because the craft growers are the best. And when you start doing big conglomerate things, everything becomes very corporate and commercial.
Quality
but that's
goes
what
down.
We're heading towards. Exactly. The quality goes down. And that's what we're all unfortunately heading towards. In California, we hit a bump. Our quality was the best in the world for forever. And then legalization hit and everyone had to redo their rooms. And it's taken a while for people to dial in their room and make sure their product is really good. But also the amount of time it takes to get the product on the shelf and to the consumer is so much longer because it has to sit in quarantine. It's got to get lab tested and packaged and transferred from, cultivator to manufacturer to distribution. To retail. So by the time you get the product, it's not as fresh.
So not only did you open the first medical marijuana dispensary back in the beginning in Southern California, your dispensary was also the first to start selling for adult use under the new cannabis law in California, right?
Yes.
So how much did things change once that came into play?
Yeah.
What's funny is I was so nervous the night before legalization. And it was like this, everyone kept asking me, what do you think's going to happen tomorrow? And I don't have a crystal ball, and I wish I did, but I was getting really nervous about what this landscape was going to look like for all of us going forward. And I was really scared that it was just going to be, and you have to look at the look of things and how things portray. And I was going to have a lot of media at the store that day. And I was afraid that we were going to have just 1,000,000 21-year-olds in line. And that made me sad because it was going to be taking away product from my normal patients, people that normally would shop there. Mm-hmm. But I was really surprised to see that the average age was more like 45. We had 80-year-olds in line, 90-year-olds. We had a 104-year-old who kept telling everyone, I've waited my whole life for this. When I was a kid, it was illegal, and now it's illegal, and now it's not illegal. He was so
excited.
So excited. And then, he was telling this like 24-year-old kid, and the 24-year-old kid goes, well, I've waited my whole life for this too, and he's going, well, I waited a whole lot longer. So it was like this really great vibe and energy in the store. That has changed a lot. Now what I'm seeing is because the taxes are so high, people don't want to shop in the traditional stores. I actually walked away from my business in April just because it just no longer made sense for me, because I think I was holding myself back by staying so stagnant for so many years. And I know so many people would like cut their legs or arms off to like have what I walked away from, but it's not the same business that it was. And it makes me sad that like I used to be able to give away product. It was up to me if I wanted to give it away. I could give away half of my product if I wanted to. If I didn't want to make any profit, I could just be a very compassionate person. And that's what I did for years. We gave away so much product to people who needed it, whether you're a vet, whether you have cancer or AIDS and you can't afford your medication. We have parents coming in with little babies with cancer in their eyes, and they're 6 months old, and these parents can't afford this very expensive oil. I wasn't going to charge them, or I would. Yeah. And if I did, it would be like maybe cost if I had to order it special for them. Mm-hmm. Now I can't do that. And that just, it really is hard for me. So I really want to focus on compassionate programs and getting people their cannabis for free. And that's something that's really important to me. Also, keeping people out of jail for cannabis. And I think a lot of people believe that because it's legal, that they can trap and it's okay. And they can still end up going to jail. Mm-hmm. And please don't do that, because we already have enough people in jail we're trying to get out.
What do you recommend people do? I mean, a lot of us want legislation to change so that we can get a lot of people out of jail for these kinds of things. What would you suggest, like, to our listeners? What ways that we can all help it so that we can make things, happen?
Well, I think that there's some great organizations out there, whether it's Last Prisoner Project, Mission Green. I love Mission Green. It's also called the Weldon Project. That was Weldon Angelos is one of our patients, former prisoners, cannabis prisoners, who's now out and fighting for other cannabis prisoners. There's Can Do Clemency, who are fighting to get clemency for people. These are all great organizations that you guys should become familiar with, research them, send them money, send them $5 or whatever you can, because every dollar makes a difference. Those are the things that I think people really need to focus on, because when you go to jail for cannabis in the feds, it is not a cannabis charge. And that's what a lot of people think, that if there's like, we have, governor sign something saying we're going to let all the pot prisoners out of jail. But guess what? It doesn't say cannabis or marijuana on their charge. It says conspiracy. And it becomes very difficult now to determine what that conspiracy was and get them off of a conspiracy charge. So, keep fighting. We got to fight. We got to band together. And those organizations are the ones really doing it right now.
Any thoughts on the MORE Act? I think they reintroduced it, right?
Yeah.
They definitely reintroduced it. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I am always scared of any kind of legalization. Federal, it should be very interesting to see what happens. I mean, I, once again, don't have a crystal ball. If it does pass, it's going to be the craziest green rush ever, because I know a million people, they're going to try to sell all of their businesses as soon as that happens, because they don't want to touch this business. And so if that's a bad sign, if people who are very successful right now want to get rid of their business if legalization hits. So I don't know where that's going to leave us. I think it's pretty hard if you're a brand and you want to build a brand in a state and you're stuck in one state, and it's like you want to expand into other states, but then you have to partner with different people in those other states, and it's watering down your brand. It's hard to be in business. So it's going to be difficult. And I think that's the one thing that will become better is it'll be a lot easier for all these different states, all these different brands to kind of move from state to state. Because we have interstate commerce still, and that's the biggest issue is like, I can create a vape, like I work with a bunch of different celebrities all the time about, creating brands for themselves. Oh, the dog has something to say. Creating
she's
brands.
Like she's her own brand.
Exactly. Are you going to create your own brand of dog biscuits? Maybe medicated
CBD.
dog biscuits would be very good for you.
Yeah, there you go.
Calm her down.
Person.
And so, so I work with a bunch of different people. And let's say we wanted to create a pot smoking moms podcast vape pen that's available in multiple states. We would basically have to come up with a formula for the vape pen. We would come up with, certain strains. That's fine. We could recreate those strains in different states. But the issue lies in the terpenes. So if they're cannabis-derived terpenes and they're made in a lab in California, I can't send them to Florida to be made. I can only send botanical terpenes from regular plants. And as you know, that's not the same as cannabis terpenes.
Yeah.
So, the product's not going to be as good if you have to do that. But if it becomes federally legal and you can now start shipping things, it will, you will see the emergence of the Coca-Cola of cannabis, the Budweiser, the big brands are going to come and move in.
Marlboro,
Yep.
Yeah, they're gonna make
they're
their
already
weed cigarettes.
Yeah, everybody's got their greedy little hands. You heard this thing with Amazon now?
Yeah,
too?
Amazon's all about it all of a sudden.
Yeah, because they got so much money.
Yeah.
Of course, they're gonna want more
They're
money.
like, I want to ship it when it's
Yeah,
federally
everybody
legal.
wants a piece of that pie.
And the reality is that all the people in the industry, we're all small fries. We're all figuring it out and learning. We don't have the delivery logistic capability that Jeff Bezos does. So if that happens, good luck to any delivery service, on the market. Bye-bye. Because sure, they'll get it to you maybe within 3 to 5 hours. Jeff Bezos will get it to you next day with free shipping.
No, they're gonna have the 2-hour delivery, with your groceries and shit.
Oh yeah, the Amazon Prime. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but if they tax the shit already, can you imagine how fucking taxed? I'm sorry. When you order your shit from Uber Eats or all these places,
super taxed,
bro, taxed as fuck. Are you kidding me? How taxed is your weed
so
gonna
bad.
be?
It's so bad. I have a hard time even like they bought Postmates Uber. I'm so sad about that.
Oh yeah,
Postmates.
Yeah.
And now I go on, I'm like, God damn it, it's an Uber freaking site. It's not the same. But yeah, it's going to happen. And, hopefully the states will start seeing that by keeping the taxes so high, they're actually hurting themselves because people would rather go buy traditional market product and not go into dispensaries. And if they don't go in the dispensary, the state doesn't make them money. So if they were to lower it, they would, lower the bar to entry. They would probably make more money over time.
There's always going to be a black market because of the high taxes.
Of course. It's never going to go away. But can they do it? It's almost like alcohol, where it becomes so much work, to have your own still and make your own, you can make your own craft beer. That's fine. But most people aren't going to be drinking it. They're going to go drink whatever the Coronas and the Budweisers and the whatevers, the Blue Moons.
Yeah, because it's easier to get too.
Exactly. And a lot of people don't know the difference. To them, weed is weed.
Yeah. That's what I used to say before the podcast. I was like, whatever, man. I'll smoke anything you give me. Yeah. Now I'm like,
weed is weed.
Yeah. But you know what? And in the places that it's illegal, people look at us and you're like, oh, wow, you know what strains you're buying? And, and they're like, I just get whatever I get, it is a really different world. And the thing is so crazy is to see how all the states are in different places. It's so crazy all over the place now. Connecticut just fucking passed adult use. It's like we should have one of those maps where we have the little lights and it lights up every time one of the states legalizes.
There's a guy named Russ who he I'm forgetting his last name. He actually has a giant tattoo of the U.S. on his back, And anytime a state goes legal, he fills it in color and like puts weed leaves on it. It's so funny.
That's
So
dedication.
I always refer to his back. Let's tell you.
Can you send me a picture
I
of
know.
your back?
Okay, please link us to his Instagram. If he has a picture of his back, that shit sounds cool.
Yeah, it's pretty funny, actually. It's quite a work. I mean, like, I don't think he understood what he was committing to when he got it, because I'm like, you do realize you're going to be constantly changing this back of yours. And yeah, so I had a dispensary in Oregon, and I had to go through the licensing process. And I've had dispensaries in California, and in California, you're not allowed to smoke inside of a building. It's for tobacco, but it qualifies for cannabis too. You're not supposed to be smoking in the building. But in West Hollywood, we were able to convince the city that we are allowed to smoke on site. That all changed during legalization, of course. But it was like, you could smoke there, but like first customers could smoke there, the patients. And then we changed that to just staff. Like the city was like, no, just the staff in the back. But now it's like, now legalization, no smoking anywhere, like, 3-block radius. It's very, very strict. And I fly to Oregon to meet with the licensing people, and they're telling me the rules. And in Oregon, you're allowed to, as an employee, smoke in the store as long as you're in a room by yourself and no one else is there, and there's no windows in that room. You can like go into a bathroom or the back room and just shut it and like literally like just smoke a huge fat joint and you're fine. They don't care on camera. Like they just don't. As long as you're not doing it with two people, it can't be a party.
That's so wild. It's so wildly specific. Isn't it funny how like when things start to be legalized in the medical and the marijuana industry, it's like they want to control it so much that they get wildly specific with things like that.
Well, it depends who's controlling it. Like in Oregon, it's the alcohol commission. So it's just very different. They're not used to cannabis. It's alcohol. Where in California, it's not. It's like there's the Bureau of Cannabis Control. It's very, very different and very strict. But the alcohol is like, they don't care if like a bartender goes in the back and takes a shot.
Exactly. They don't make them hide in a corner by themselves.
Are you kidding me? I've seen bartenders like just take shots with the customers out in public.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that, definitely helps. Like in California, you can't have like huge jars of cannabis that you're showing people and opening the top and letting them smell like we used to. But in Oregon, totally fine.
No, that's the life.
I was in California.
More than half a pound. Don't put more than half a pound because they're going to steal it.
Yeah.
Like, that's what the guy told me.
I was in California. I think it was 2018, 2019. The pandemic has messed up my my calendar in my head. But it was the first time I was ever in California. I was super excited because, adult use. And I was in Disneyland all day. And afterwards, I was called an Uber and I was trying to find the closest dispensary. And I had the guy take me there and it wasn't there. And he's like, oh, I know another spot. He totally took me to an illegal dispensary for sure. Because they had big mason jars of weed and I could see and smell it. And they opened it and they weighed it out in front of me and all that. And I found out later that's not how it's done there.
Well, they were late to give out licenses in Orange County, and they have now. And I believe it was Planet 13 that just opened, which I think is like the closest to Disneyland now. So next time you come out, it'll be a different experience.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Pot smoking mom's experience.
Yeah.
That's
we're planning
right.
a trip out there soon. So not only have you been involved, obviously, in the dispensaries and consulting, you've also consulted in Hollywood on television shows, on making sure that they have like the aesthetic and everything of being a pot smoker down on their...
Well, they stole the show Weeds stole my likeness.
Okay.
That's
heard...
How did that happen though?
Yeah,
how did you put all those dots? How did you connect all the dots?
So I was the only shop open, and I was the only like woman. My partner was my godbrother, named Andrew, and our store was beautiful. It was like really beautiful. We actually signed a lease for a space that was already gorgeous. Like when we took it, it was like, oh my God, this is the best. Like I don't have to do anything to this place. I just have to bring in the weed. Like it was great. And so it was like this high-end, gorgeous store that I would never even have thought like to do this, like the way they decorated it had silk hanging from the ceilings. I mean, it was stunning. And it was very like bohemian, and it was just perfect for what we were trying to do. And you walked in there, you forgot you had cancer, you forgot you had any issues. And it was just this like, you know,
utopia,
kind of like this oasis. Yeah, oasis, like away from everything, all the hustle and bustle of the city. And it was just a special time. And people in Hollywood would hear about it. I mean, I went to high school with a lot of Hollywood people. And so they would tell their friends. And before you know it, like all my clientele were Hollywood types. We had major celebrities coming in from day one. And Snoop was referring people to me left and right. So it was like a wild time. And I remember people would ask me questions all the time, and I would answer them thinking like, oh, they just want to know how I got into the business and they're curious. I had actually written a script that I wanted to kind of pitch about my life. And I let a couple people read it, and they took notes and gave me notes. And it was probably like a year later, I had a customer come in, the patient came in and goes, hey, you know, you look great on that billboard outside.
Oh my fucking God.
What are you
kidding
talking
me?
about? And I ran outside. I took one look, and I didn't even recognize the fact that it wasn't me in the picture, which probably like, put on your glasses, Dina. That's Mary Louise Parker. But I did not. I saw like a brunette surrounded by weed.
But she looked different from when I first saw Mary Louise Parker, okay, in Adventures in Babysitting. Isn't that where that's where I first saw her.
No, she's not. I don't think she's from that.
No, I'm probably getting her confused with someone else, but she looked different, right?
She looked different. And funny you said Adventures in Babysitting, because my
friend
played the tomboy in that movie.
Oh, yeah, I love that movie.
The little girl.
The little girl?
The little
sister?
Yeah, she was she went to high school with me.
Oh, I loved her.
Yeah, that movie is one of my favorites. I love 80s movies.
Yeah, so everyone I went to high school with was like an actor, or their parents were actors or musicians, except for me. I was like the one person who's like, my dad's in the window covering business. Like, and so so it was like a weird thing. So I had really great people coming in. Little did I know that the writers for that show had made my dispensary their home. And, you know, they really loosely based this character off of me, and the Andy character off of my partner, Andrew.
Oh my goodness.
And we, you know, some of it was very accurate and some was very not accurate. Like when I first started watching it, I was so upset. I think I actually called Snoop Dogg and yelled at him about the billboard, because I thought he did it as a prank. It was like around April Fools. And he was like, baby girl, a billboard on Sunset Boulevard is like $50,000 a month. I'm like, I love you, but like not that much. And so I'm like, wait, this must be a real show. And then he told me, he called me like a month later. He goes, you're never going to believe it. I was filming a TV show today and they totally are biting off you. I'm like, you're kidding me. And then the show came out and I started watching it, and I was like physically upset watching it.
Yeah, but your heart must have sank into your stomach. I can only imagine how freaking mad you were.
It wasn't even so much mad. I was like honored. Okay, that's cool.
You inspired.
That's cool. But I was scared that the feds were going to be like, oh my God, this is a real person. We're going to come after her. So I was freaking the fuck out. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, we need to make the stop now. And so, and she's a total slut sleeping with a DEA agent. I like lost my shit over that. So I'm like, I would never sleep with a DEA agent. I would know. And which is ironic, because years later we got raided, and I'm sitting there in handcuffs and I'm looking at all the agents, and I'm like, I was actually wrong about that statement, because these guys are freaking hot. Like, every one of them was smoking hot. I'm like, God damn, like, are you guys models or DEA agents? What's going on here? Where are they finding you guys? Like, what is the deal? Which they actually thought was very funny. I got a good laugh out of it. But yeah, I was so upset. I contacted my attorney. I said, I want to sue Showtime and stop this show, because I had already told them so much of my life. I was afraid of what they were going to use next.
Yeah. And
my lawyer was going to, you know, he was doing some research into it, and he contacted his friend over at the DEA and said, hey, let's just say hypothetically, I had a client who said that she's the real life Nancy Botwin from this TV show Weeds, and I were to sue them, and let's say I were to win, would you guys care? And they said, oh, hell yeah, we'd go after her and we'd charge her with every crime that the character committed on the show.
Oh my goodness.
And my lawyer, I will never forget, like him calling me, and I thought it was going to be good news, you know, and I think I was actually like helping Naomi Campbell at the time, which was like always an interesting experience.
I bet.
And so, my lawyer's calling. I'm like, hold on a second, you know, and he's like, we're not suing Showtime. I'm like, huh? And he's like, we're not suing Showtime. You're never going to tell anyone that show is based on you. Anyone. I'm like, really? And he told me everything. I'm like, oh my God, no, I'm never going to tell anyone ever. And I didn't for probably like a decade. And then it just happened one day. It was right before Halloween. It was like October 1st, because I was at Target buying Halloween decorations for the store. I didn't have cell phone reception. And when I got out of the parking structure, I had like 36 missed calls, all from Snoop and his manager, which is not a good sign. I'm like, oh shit, someone got pulled over, and I did not have my phone on to answer the phone, because I always had Snoop's recommendation have my phone number on it, so that like 24/7 I could validate his rec. And I'm like, oh shit. So I call Snoop. He doesn't answer. I'm like, fuck. And I call his manager. His manager goes, where are you? I go, I'm at Target. He goes, right by the shop. We're going to be there in 2 minutes. I'm like, oh, okay. What's going on? He goes, dog needs to smoke. I'm like, 36 phone calls. Okay, dog needs to smoke. And so I head over there, and he shows up, and he's with this white dude who like just they did not mesh together. I'm like, something is like weird. Who is this guy? And Snoop's like, just give him a tour, show him around, you know. And Snoop's like, this is Dr. Dina. This is the real life Nancy Botwin from the show Weeds. This is my sister. And, you know, we're doing our thing. We're very funny together. I've known him since I was 15. I'm 46. So yeah, I've known him for a very long time, 30 years. And we're goofing off. And I didn't realize that this white dude was a writer for GQ magazine. And a few weeks later, I got an email from a fact-checking person at GQ saying, hey, can you fact-check this article? And I'm reading it. I'm like, no, this is bad. This is very bad. I should not be. The whole article is about me and Snoop. I'm like, this is bad. This is very bad. It should be about him, not me. And so I wrote them back, and I said, everything here is wrong. Like, I don't have a grow room. I don't sell marijuana. Like, I mean, literally, it was a joke if you saw my response back, because they're like, she's just being really difficult.
Yeah.
And they printed it exactly how it was before they emailed me. And that was it. It was Snoop outing me, and people just took to it. And it was actually very funny. About a week later, I had Snoop's team called me and said, hey, someone from Rolling Stone's going to call you, that we were going to do a photo shoot, and Dog wants to do it at your place. I'm like, okay. And I'm assuming, okay, he wants to do it in the grow room, because that's like the cool room to take pictures in front of. And so we set it up, and it was for April 13th, 2000. And I'm trying to remember which time this was, 2011. And so I'm like waiting for the people to come in. Rolling Stone's going to do a photo shoot. This is really exciting. They're coming at 4:00, and 11:30 we get raided by the DEA.
Oh my God.
And they take down all our plants, and they do this whole thing. And, you know, I am like livid. I forgot about the photo shoot. Like, I am just like, I'm in shock because I'm getting raided, and for no reason. These people are coming in and literally robbing me, taking all my money, all my product, breaking my cameras, smashing everything they could smash. Like, they're assholes. Like, they purposely want to make it so you can't reopen, you know, and they're going to set you back. And I have a mouth on me, so I was letting them have it. And my employees were like, oh shit, she's going to get arrested, you know. And I'm like, you got to have a reason to arrest me, bro. I don't even work here. And it was a scene. But I remember them leaving. And then I remembered it was like 3:00. I'm like, oh my God, I have to call Rolling Stone magazine and tell them they can't do their photo shoot here in an hour. And so I called them, and they were in a huge board meeting and I had to like announce it on speakerphone, and it was very embarrassing. I'm like, you guys can't do this. We just got raided by the DEA. And I hung up with them. And I guess they were like, who the fuck is this woman? Like, someone needs to go interview her right away. So the next thing you know, like Rolling Stone's coming out to interview me. I'm like, this is so weird. What is happening? And from there, like just the media went crazy. I mean, I never had a publicist. It was wild. And people do love that Nancy Botwin character. She's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
She's stubborn, and I'm a pain in the ass. I'm stubborn. There's a lot of similarities. And it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun, but I didn't get paid from it. And it was always like a sore spot to me that like someone was profiting off of my life. And so it was a few years later, and I started getting picked up for different consulting gigs in TV and film. And so I did some work on Sons of Anarchy. I did some work on the show Mom. And then I helped the show Disjointed. I was there. I was a very hands-on cannabis consultant. So I worked on all 20 episodes. I worked closely with the cast, all the actors, and I actually made them all work in my store for a week.
That's awesome.
Before we started filming. And it was awesome. I mean, people were like, some people recognized Kathy Bates behind the counter. Some people didn't. And it was so funny when they didn't, and they just thought she was like someone's grandma working.
That's
like it was
so
just funniest shit ever.
God.
That's amazing.
And so for me, it was really important for them to understand what we're doing. And I think it did portray in the show. And that was a really special show to me, because I did literally everything from pick brands to be on the shelves. Like that was actual real brands, not product, but product brands. The packaging was all real on the shelves. People who watched it were confused and thought it was a real dispensary, which to me is the ultimate compliment, because it was filmed on on the lot of Warner Brothers. So that was really cool.
I really enjoyed that show. I thought it was funny and fun to watch. I liked it.
Yeah.
It was a very goofy show. I think a lot of people didn't understand where we were taking it. I mean, we were making fun of sitcoms.
Yeah.
And the old sitcom, like, you know, it's a recipe. You know, you have to have the commercials to break it up. Well, Netflix didn't have commercials, so we had to make our own commercials to kind of give it that feel. And so, yeah, we were very, very goofy. We were very stoned on set every single day. And the scenes where Kathy Bates is ridiculously high are actual real scenes of her being ridiculously high.
Yes.
That's all. Were all the people on the show, like, were they already smoking cannabis?
No. In fact, it's funny. Kathy, like, stopped smoking probably in the 60s. So she hadn't smoked in a long time. And she had cancer and like was scared to, won't smoke a cigarette. So she didn't really want to smoke a joint. So for Kathy, we got her on tinctures, pills, edibles, and vape pens. She was all about the vape pens.
Wow.
For the other staff, some of them, like, they weren't really big smokers. They all became kind of big smokers while they were working on the show. They were all really like loving it.
Yeah.
But they went back to their lives, and, they still smoke occasionally, but they really wanted to take part and be part of the culture, which I think is so important when you're, doing a show about a cannabis industry where we are getting raided and we are being treated like criminals, even though we're just trying to be legit.
Yeah, just like moms who smoke weed, we get shamed all the time. And it's like, it's the best stress reliever. And especially nowadays, parenting is a lot harder than it used to be, to me.
Well, it's funny you said that, because when we were writing the show, we had to really pick which characters we wanted to focus on their story. And I kept telling them, like, the important stories. Like, if you go into 200 dispensaries, at least 50 of them, you're going to find that security guard with PTSD who was in Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever he or she was stationed, and has PTSD from that experience. And that is something that everyone tells me when they watch it. Oh my God, my security guard is the same way. Or everyone has the mom customer who is a little like super excited to be cool and like wants to be part of something. And that's why we created Maria, the character, the mom
She's
character,
hilarious.
which I thought we all loved that character. And it was just a really, really special character, I think.
So you said you had kind of written a script before Weeds. So did you ever see, I know that you were in the fashion, right? You were a fashion designer at the beginning, right?
I was not a fashion designer. I started off as a pieced goods buyer, which is not very sexy. You got to buy the zippers and the buttons and the trim. And then I became a fabric buyer. So I bought all the fabric. And then from there, I opened up my own showroom and I was a sales rep for 14 different clothing lines. So that's what I was doing beforehand. And then I started, my script really started with me breaking up with my ex and opening up a dispensary, which is the basis for Weeds. Was her husband dies and she gets into the cannabis industry. To me, he was dead. He wasn't really dead, but to me, he's dead. In fact, even the opening scene where they show the little boxes and people running down the street, that was my old neighborhood. So they went so far as to actually film that in my neighborhood where I was living.
Jesus.
So they really,
creepy.
They knew what they were doing. They did their research. But it is what it is.
They changed it just enough.
They changed it just enough so
Just
that you can't.
enough.
Yeah, because she was in the illegal cannabis industry and like.
Right. I don't have kids. I don't kill grandmas. I don't sleep with DEA agents.
By the
or
end of
Mexican
the
drug cartel.
Well,
By the end of the show, I was not a fan of Nancy Botwin. I was like, girl,
I don't think
your priorities.
I never watched more past season 2. I think I watched a couple episodes of season 2 and I was like, fuck the show. I couldn't watch it at all. I know that they had a Mexican drug cartel link,
she got
which is weird because I have a link to that world, but I would never sleep with him or involve him in my business. Like, I'm not that dumb. But like, we know those people and they knew that. They knew that we knew these people. And that's the crazy part. And what's even crazier is my godbrother, Andrew, is currently in jail for setting fire to his competitor's building, which is exactly what this character did on the show.
Oh, God.
So
Wow.
Did you ever did you ever see yourself like in the TV industry? Did you ever have kind of like or is just kind of because life is funny, you just got there through all of the happenstance?
Yeah, exactly. It was just weird. It was like people reached out to me because I was, the queen of cannabis. And they read about me because of Snoop Dogg, Thanks, Snoop.
Yeah, man, Snoop Dogg.
Wow. Yeah, quite.
There are worse friends to have in the world, I have to say.
Shit.
Quite the resume.
Yeah, for
it's
real.
It's inspiring, really. Your story really is inspiring. How you just trailblazed it, like you just went for it.
And you started from.
I blazed it all right. I blazed it all the way on the trail.
Speaking of.
Yeah, but you did it for all the right reasons. I also get mad when I see the corruption and all the greed that gets involved with like how do you even control that? What can we do?
There's always going to be corruption and greed.
Yeah.
All you could do is just make it more accessible to people. And, if you dangle the carrot in front of the horse, eventually, they'll try to take it. For me, it was, I have a lot of girlfriends who are parents. I don't have any kids, but I love kids. My best friend she's now 11 years old. But when she was 3, my girlfriend liked to drink. And she could polish off a bottle of wine in the night, no problem, right? And then a lot of my mom friends, that's what they do. They have mommy juice at night. And, mommy juice is great and all, but what happens when your 3-year-old has a crazy dream and takes their hand and hits the nightstand and knocks a glass off the nightstand and then gets up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom and steps on the glass and severs their toe?
Oh, my goodness.
And you've drank in a bottle of wine. Now, after that experience, my girlfriend has completely stopped drinking and only smokes cannabis. And she said, like, everything was fine. They reattached her daughter's toe. She was okay. But she had to call 911 and she had to wait a really long time for them to come. And she was drunk and like not as quick on her toes as she would like to be as a mom to respond in a situation like that. And the fact that she couldn't just put her kid in the car and drive her to the hospital was something that like really to this day, really just it hurt her.
God, that is very changing, and I feel like
it's a life-changing experience for sure. And a lot of moms don't think about that.
Yeah.
They just think like, oh, I just want to relax. I'm like, what happens when there's an emergency?
Yeah.
And they turn to wine because they feel that's their only choice because of it being
and because
illegal.
It's been demonized too. And even if it is legal, it's stigmatized. It's got such a terrible stigma.
The stigma, exactly.
That's crazy, but that's such perspective because honestly, I've never heard a story like that, and that really puts things into place.
Yeah, I've never even thought of it that way. I've just never been a drinker because ever since I started smoking pot, like that's just always been my love. Yeah, I don't need to drink.
I go straight to hangover too. Jesus, it makes you feel so shitty. Like, why would you want to continue doing that?
Well, it's like fun for like half an hour, and then it's all downhill from there, as far as I'm concerned. So I don't do it, but I have a lot of friends that drink, and it just. After that experience and my friend sharing that with all her little mommy group and everything, they all stopped drinking. Like they'll have a drink in the daytime, like one glass of wine maybe, but when their kid goes to bed, it's no longer the like we're drinking a glass of wine and getting drunk. We're gonna take some dabs instead and feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and be still able to go drive somebody somewhere.
You're not
impaired.
You're not
exactly. You're not impaired to be able to function, to be able to react on, lightning reflexes. That was something like, I remember when she was telling me, like when she got to the hospital, the emergency room doctor was like, you should have done this. You should have rinsed it out right away with water, because she just took a towel and put it on it, but there was glass still in her foot. And so it was just she didn't know what to do. And she was completely just shit-faced and could not function other than like 911. And she was slurring. She actually requested the tape of the 911 call, which they sent her. And she played it for me. And we were like, it was sad, but we were like pissing our pants because she was like slurring. It was like, it took them 10 minutes to figure out where the hell she was calling from. But that is
such a freaking, like, that's you looking at your life from up here, like, it's like, right? Isn't that crazy?
Hell yeah. I have another friend who luckily her kid's okay, but she was at a friend's house and the mom, started serving drinks and all the moms were huddled together with their drinks and one of their kids fell in the pool face down. And luckily, like there was an older kid there that was about 6 that jumped in and pulled the 3-year-old out of the pool. And that's when they realized the commotion, something was wrong. And like these things happen in a split second.
Yeah.
And, it could happen even if you're smoking cannabis. You really have to watch your kids. But, when you're drinking and you tend to just, you're a little numbed out. It's a little scary.
And that's why I kind of starting to get irritated every time people are like, oh, weed should be just as acceptable as alcohol. There's no comparison.
No, to me, it should not be. It should be more acceptable than alcohol.
Exactly.
Yes, very important point.
Yeah, it's superior in our eyes. And that was great. If you want to hear the entire interview, definitely go over to our Patreon. You get early access to all our episodes and you'll hear full interviews. You won't hear any edited interviews. There'll be full interviews. You can hit her up on Instagram at Dr. Dina 420. She's also on Clubhouse. She also has her own cannabis podcast. It's called Cannabis Confidential with Dr. Dina. And
she needs your recommendation.
If you need your medical recommendation for your card, she's going to hook you up. All you got to go is to dr-weedy.com/Dr. Dina 420. We'll go ahead and post it on the website on our Instagram post for the episode. So you can go through the website. We went on there. It looks fairly easy to do that. So definitely check that out. Hey, thanks so much for being a listener and, you know, listening to the Pot Smoking Moms. We appreciate you. More importantly, we appreciate our sponsors. Thank you guys so much for not only listening to the podcast, but also contributing. Yanni Reyes, Destiny Adams, Lauren Hadsel, Jesse Reyes, Christy Rodriguez, April Collins, Terry Grimsley, Shelby Gleckler, and Denise Castros. Thank you guys so very much. Thanks for listening. We hope you guys, we hope to catch you on the flip side, guys.
Bye.
See ya.